January 2025, Los Angeles burned. Not for the first time, not for the last time, but this time, the world watched. This is a city that has been born, stolen, dreamed into existence, broken, rebuilt, mourned, celebrated, and reinvented, more times than anyone can count. This is Los Angeles, the most American city on Earth, and this is its story. Before there was a city, there was a people. For thousands of years, perhaps as many as 10,000, the Tongva people lived in the basin that would one day become Los Angeles. They called their world home. They built villages. They traded. They told stories under these same stars. The Tongva, also known as the Gabrieleño, had a complex social structure, a rich spiritual life, and trade networks that connected them to peoples across California. Their name for the river that ran through their land, the river we now call the Los Angeles River, was Porciuncula. They had a word for everything here. They had a name for every hill, every canyon, every wind that came off the ocean. Then, in 1542, a ship appeared on the horizon, Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo, a Portuguese explorer sailing under the Spanish crown. He was the first European to lay eyes on what would become Los Angeles. He claimed it, as colonizers do, for a king thousands of miles away who had never seen this land and never would. The Tongva were not consulted. Over the next 2 centuries, the Spanish built a chain of missions up the California coast. Religious outposts that converted, assimilated, and in many cases, destroyed the indigenous cultures they encountered. The Tongva were drawn into this system. Many died from European diseases. Many were forcibly converted. A people who had thrived for millennia began to vanish. And yet, they did not disappear. Today, Tongva descendants are still here, still fighting for recognition, for land rights, for the right to be seen as the original stewards of this city. Los Angeles was built on their land. That is where every story of this city must begin. September 4th, 1781. A group of 44 settlers, 14 families of Native American, African, and European heritage, walked over 1,000 miles across desert from what is now northern Mexico. Under the direction of Spanish Governor Felipe de Neve, they established a small farming settlement on the banks of the Porciuncula River. They called it El Pueblo de Nuestra Señora la Reina de los Ángeles de Porciuncula, the town of Our Lady the Queen of the Angels of the Porciuncula. We call it Los Angeles. Those first 44 settlers were, from the very beginning, a multicultural group. Native, African, European, mixed. Los Angeles was diverse before diversity was a talking point. It was, in the beginning, unremarkable. A dusty farming settlement, a blip on the map of the Spanish Empire. But Los Angeles had something invaluable: climate, sunshine, rich soil, water, or at least the illusion of water. For 40 years, the city lived under the Spanish flag. Then, in 1821, Mexico won its independence from Spain, and Los Angeles became Mexican territory. The Ranchos era began. Great cattle ranches stretching as far as the eye could see. Vaqueros, adobe haciendas, a wild, open landscape that felt like freedom. It was romantic. It was brutal. And it would not last. In 1846, American soldier John C. Fremont seized Los Angeles from Mexico. 2 years later, in 1848, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo ended the Mexican-American War. California and Los Angeles officially became part of the United States. With American control came American ambition and American chaos. Los Angeles in the 1850s was a lawless frontier town. Former soldiers, gamblers, outlaws, prostitutes driven out of San Francisco. The city earned a nickname that should be impossible for a place that would one day host the Oscars. The toughest and most lawless city west of Santa Fe. Murder was commonplace. Lynch mobs formed regularly. The law was whoever had the bigger gun. And yet, gold had been discovered. California was officially a state by 1850. And 3,000 miles away, people were watching in 1850. Los Angeles was incorporated as a city with roughly 1,600 residents. It was the smallest, roughest city in America. But everything was about to change. 1876. The Southern Pacific Railroad arrives, a steel thread connecting Los Angeles to the rest of the country, and the country to Los Angeles. The first demographic boom begins almost immediately. 500,000 people would flood in over the next 40 years. The sleepy Pueblo would never be sleepy again. Historian Carey McWilliams once wrote that Los Angeles's growth was, and I want you to hear this, one continuous boom punctuated at intervals by major explosions. He was not wrong. The railroad brought people. But what would keep them here? What would make them rich? Oil. In the 1890s, oil was discovered beneath the streets of Los Angeles, then at Signal Hill, then in the San Fernando Valley. The discovery of oil fields across the region triggered a race to capitalize, and LA became something that would astound modern residents. One of the largest oil-producing regions on Earth. The production from here, one oil executive would later say, made Los Angeles the equivalent of Saudi Arabia today. Oil derricks lined Venice Beach. They stood in backyards. They pumped money out of the ground, and that money funded the restaurants, the hotels, the mansions, the ambitions that would make Los Angeles legendary. Before Hollywood, there was oil, and nobody talks about it. The oil funded a city, but a city needs a story. And in the early 20th century, Los Angeles found the most powerful story-making machine in human history, Hollywood. Filmmakers came to Southern California for practical reasons. The weather was almost always sunny. It rarely rained. The landscape was extraordinary. You could shoot ocean, mountain, and desert within an hour's drive of downtown. By 1914, Hollywood, then a sleepy suburb, had become the center of the global filmmaking industry. MGM, Warner Brothers, Paramount, RKO, 20th Century Fox. By the mid-1930s, 5 major studios dominated the world's imagination from one city on the Pacific coast of America. Los Angeles was no longer just a city. It was a dream factory. And the whole world wanted in. The 1920 census recorded something remarkable. Los Angeles had surpassed San Francisco in population. It had become the 10th largest city in the nation. By 1930, it ranked 5th. During the 1920s alone, LA doubled in size. Hundreds of thousands arrived by automobile. A new freedom, a new machine, a new city designed for the car before the car had fully arrived. Los Angeles would become the first truly automobile city on Earth. Then came the war. World War II transformed Los Angeles as much as anything in its history. The defense and aerospace industries arrived. By the 1960s, more than half of all jobs in Los Angeles County would be in aerospace. The city that had been built on farming, then oil, then film, now built the machines that won the Cold War. Douglas Aircraft, Lockheed, North American Aviation, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, built in the Pasadena Hills, pointing humanity toward the stars. Los Angeles did not just dream of the future, it built it. But every boom has a shadow. Post-World War II, Los Angeles expanded outward in every direction. Suburbs consuming orange groves, freeways cutting through established neighborhoods, housing tracts spreading across the San Fernando Valley. And here is the part of the story that most documentaries leave on the cutting room floor. The growth of mid-century Los Angeles was racially engineered. Restrictive housing covenants prevented Black and Mexican-American families from buying homes in most of the city. The Federal Housing Administration, the very agency funding the suburban boom, actively redlined minority neighborhoods, denying loans, ensuring that the prosperity of the American dream was distributed by race. Watts, East LA Compton. These were not just neighborhoods, they were containment zones. August 1965. The Watts Rebellion. 6 days of uprising. 34 people killed. Over 1,000 injured. Nearly $40 million in property damage. The National Guard deployed. Tanks in the streets of an American city. The trigger. A routine traffic stop. The fuel. Decades of poverty. Police brutality. And a broken promise. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. came to Watts after the fires. He said he had never seen such hopelessness. Not in Birmingham. Not in Selma. Los Angeles had glamour on its surface. Beneath the surface, it was cracking. Los Angeles hosted the 1984 Summer Olympics, a triumph of civic pride. A city showing the world its best face. Magic Johnson and the Showtime Lakers. Hollywood in its prime. A city on top of the world. Then, 8 years later, in 1992, the city exploded again. The acquittal of 4 police officers who had beaten Rodney King on camera, an event millions watched with their own eyes, triggered the most destructive urban uprising in American history since the Civil War. 53 people killed, over 2,000 injured, $1 billion in damage. Koreatown obliterated, South Central on fire. And then, just 2 years later, the Earth itself revolted. January 17, 1994, the Northridge earthquake, 6.7 magnitude. 57 people killed, $25 billion in damage. Freeways collapsed in seconds. A city that had survived every human catastrophe found itself humbled by the planet underneath its feet. What do you do when your city has burned twice in 30 years and then been shaken to its foundation? If you're Los Angeles, you rebuild. You always rebuild. The late 1990s brought a strong recovery. By the end of the century, the fastest-growing sectors in Los Angeles were construction, finance, and technology. Silicon Beach, the stretch of startups from Santa Monica to Venice, began to emerge as a real tech hub. Once a city that made movies and missiles, Los Angeles was now making apps, streaming platforms, and the architecture of the digital world. Snap, Hulu, TikTok's North American headquarters, Riot Games, Activision Blizzard. The entertainment industry didn't die in the digital age, it mutated. Netflix was born in California. YouTube changed storytelling forever. A city built on stories found 1,000 new ways to tell them. And through all of this, the people kept coming. Los Angeles absorbed wave after wave of immigration. Korean, Vietnamese, Ethiopian, Salvadoran, Guatemalan, Iranian, Armenian, Filipino. Each community brought its food, its music, its language, its resilience. Today, over 100 languages are spoken in the Los Angeles Unified School District. The city that began with 44 settlers from 3 continents had grown into a true world city. In 1993, a full century after it was proposed, Los Angeles opened its first metro rail line. The city that had famously destroyed its red-car streetcar system in the 1950s, making itself permanently car-dependent in a decision that still haunts urban planners, was slowly, painfully, building itself back. and the world kept coming back. In 2024, the $2 billion Intuit Dome opened in Inglewood, home of the Los Angeles Clippers, featuring what engineers called the Halo board, the largest double-sided display ever built inside an arena. Los Angeles had been awarded the 2028 Summer Olympics. A city that had hosted the Olympics in 1932 and 1984 would do so again, and this time, the whole world would come to a city transformed. Then came the pandemic. COVID-19 hollowed out Los Angeles in ways that still haven't fully healed. The entertainment industry, the backbone of the city's identity, ground to a halt. Restaurants closed, hotels emptied, tourism vanished, and the housing crisis, already catastrophic, became unbearable. On any given night in 2024, more than 75,000 people experienced homelessness in Los Angeles County, more than 50,000 of them sleeping outside, unsheltered, in a city with a $1.3 billion annual homelessness budget. $1.3 billion. And the tents kept growing. Angeles spent more on homelessness than on its fire department. Federal audits found insufficient financial accountability. Billions spent, and the problem by almost every measure got worse. This is the paradox at the heart of modern Los Angeles. Enormous wealth and staggering failure, side by side, every single day. Then, in January 2025, the Eaton Fire in Altadena became the second most destructive wildfire in California history. The Pacific Palisades Fire, third. Together, they destroyed thousands of structures, claimed more than 24 lives, and caused property losses estimated between $76 billion and $131 billion. The total area burned was more than double the size of Manhattan Island. During the fires, landlords raised rents an average of 15% to 20%, some doubled overnight, violating California's price gouging laws. 200,000 people were displaced. The unhoused, already invisible, became even more so, losing tents, medications, identification, the fragile threads holding their lives together. California launched the fastest debris removal effort in American history. $2.5 billion allocated for recovery. Governor Newsom signed executive order after executive order. But rebuilding is slow. Rebuilding is brutal. And for many, the city they knew is simply gone. For the first time in a long time, people began to ask out loud, is Los Angeles sustainable? And yet, this is the most important part of the story of Los Angeles. It never stops. In 2025, the metro area population of Los Angeles reached 12.6 million people, still growing. Healthcare added 43,700 new jobs. The educational sector grew. Even as the film industry contracted under streaming pressures and the aftershocks of the 2023 writers and actors strikes, new creative industries emerged to fill the gaps. Destination Crenshaw. Measure ULA, which raised over $270 million in 2024 for affordable housing programs. A new wing at the Natural History Museum. The Central Library, celebrating its centennial. The Griffith Observatory, turning 90 a city that burns also builds. The Dodgers won their second consecutive World Series in 2025. Shohei Ohtani, the Japanese superstar, had become a symbol of what Los Angeles does better than any city on Earth: absorb talent from every corner of the world and make it something new. Los Angeles is now at the forefront of the clean energy transition. The city that once symbolized car culture and smog is now a global leader in electric vehicles, solar energy, and green building. JPL, still tucked in the Pasadena hills, is still pointing humanity toward the stars. In 2028, the world will come to Los Angeles for the Summer Olympics, the third time this city has hosted the planet's greatest event. Athletes from 200 nations will run, jump, swim, and compete on streets that the Tongva people walked 10,000 years ago. The question Los Angeles is still trying to answer has always been. Trying to answer is not whether it can survive. It has survived everything. The question is, who gets to stay? Who gets to be part of this city? Who gets to share in the dream? That is the unfinished business of Los Angeles. That has always been the unfinished business. Every city has a mythology. New York is ambition. Chicago is grit. London is history. Los Angeles is possibility. It is the city where you can arrive with nothing and become everything. Where a kid from Jalisco can win an Oscar. Where a daughter of Korean immigrants can become a tech billionaire. Where a black poet from Compton can sell out the Hollywood Bowl. It is also the city where you can have everything and lose it in a wildfire. Where the dream can cost so much that only the dreamless can afford to stay. But something in Los Angeles, something in the light, in the way the Santa Ana winds carry the smell of the ocean over the mountains, in the way this city refuses to be defined, refuses to be finished, keeps pulling people here. 44 settlers. Now, 12 million. Tongva land, Spanish settlement, Mexican rancho, American boomtown, oil capital, dream factory, aerospace pioneer, cultural capital of the world, and still becoming something it has never been before. This is Los Angeles. This has always been Los Angeles. And the story is nowhere near over. The January 2025 LA wildfires displaced 200,000 people. 75,000 people remain homeless in LA County on any given night. The 2028 Olympics are an opportunity to rebuild equitably or to displace thousands more. Los Angeles was built by people who came from everywhere. Its future will be shaped by those who choose to stay and fight for it.